Newsfirst, face-to-face with Jamal Ratnayaka.
Politics is not a game, it is an earnest business. This was a quote which was made by the famous British Prime Minister, the late, great Winston Churchill. However, in Sri Lanka, if you take this quote into consideration, there seems to be a very blurry line between politics being a game and an earnest business. To talk about all of this and much more this evening, we have invited to our studios tonight Sajin Vass Gunawardena, a former Member of Parliament, and also he has been holding many positions in previous governments. He was also a former CEO of a state-owned airline, and currently he is serving as the Assistant Secretary General of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party as well as the Secretary of External Affairs of the SLFP as well. A very good evening to you, Mr. Gunawardena, and welcome on the show.
Thank you, Jamal. A good evening to you as well.
So, Mr. Gunawardena, you have been under the radar for quite some time, if I may put it so. And once more, you have accepted our invitations and come into our shows. How did you enjoy your break from politics and now back again into active politics with the SLFP?
Jamal, let me thank you first for having me here tonight.
Certainly.
I did take a break, but it was not a 100% break.
Right.
I have never left the SLFP. I will always be in the SLFP. But when the SLFP in the recent past decided to go and join forces with the SLPP,
right,
I took a step back because I was against that, and that is not my thinking in terms of politics.
Okay.
And when they again disengaged, Honorable Maithripala Sirisena invited me to come back, and which I did. And so I have never been not active.
Right.
In Galle district. I have been very active, and I have been working for the people and been in touch with the people as well. So, but now I have a more active role and a more responsible role in terms of the party.
Right. So let's talk about the SLPP first of all, Mr. Gunawardena, since we are on that topic. The SLPP, one might say, has been scrambling to form new alliances, has been scrambling to get the popular vote of the people. We've seen there has been a tug of war between two representatives of the SLPP. Can you just untangle this for me and our viewers as well, as to what is happening within the party at present?
You're talking about the SLPP or the SLFP?
The SLFP.
SLFP.
Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
Well, SLFP, the thing is, you see, we have seen certain issues that have been there with our former Secretary General, Honorable Dasiri Jayasekara.
Yes.
Matter is in court. And then we saw the defection of Honorable Shan Vijayalal last week. But these, Jamal, are normal things when it comes to a political party. When an election is close by,
Right.
people have ambitions. People have aspirations. Some people know to wade through that and to be patient until your time comes.
Yes.
But some people are impatient. So the impatient take decisions and perhaps make mistakes. So in a democratic party, I must reiterate one thing. Honorable Maithripala Sirisena's style of governance in the party is very democratic.
Right.
Perhaps at times too democratic.
Right.
But that is the nature of the person. And therefore, we have a very open forum where we can argue, we can express our views and all that. But when one doesn't toe the party line and when one has ambitions and aspirations of a greater nature and one is not prepared to accept and wait for the time frame, for example, conflicts start. And then the leader has to look at what is good for the party.
Right.
And of course, he can't do it alone. He has to have the backing of the Central Committee of the party.
Yes.
So, having said all this, that is, I believe, a true democratic nature of politics.
Politics.
And as you quoted Sir Winston Churchill, that is what it is. It's a business in that sense. But with all this, we have now reorganized our party very strongly. We are in the process of building one of the strongest new alliances to face whatever elections that comes first. And Her Excellency, the former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga is also involved in formulating this. And I think there is a larger consensus now, because the role of the SLFP is very clear in the minds of the people.
Okay.
Because when you look at the division of politics, when you look at the players, when you look at the parties, the most integral role in terms of deciding the fate of the country rests with the SLFP.
Right, I see. So, linking the players in the political arena in Sri Lanka, and also your opening remarks when you said that you moved away from politics because of a decision that the SLFE made to join hands with the SLPP. But me and also our viewers know that the SLPP is headed by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who you worked very closely with in the past. Why did you take a break from politics and did not see eye to eye with the SLFP's decision to join the SLPP at the time?
See, we lost in 2015. Fundamentally, we should have accepted the fact that the people voted against us.
Right.
I was even that time, I was not agreeable from my personal, I mean, whether I agree or not, it may not be important to the Rajapaksa family. But my thoughts at that time was very clear that we should not establish another political party.
Okay.
If we, number one, fundamentally, we must accept the fact that the SLFP lost, right? People voted. And number two, whatever we do, whatever differences of opinions that we have, must be within the party.
Right.
When you break a party and you put another party, it's a mushroom party. You will see the fate of the SLPP in any given election. And what I said then will become true.
Right.
And most certainly I was against that. And there were a lot of issues as well. And of course, in the 2015 election, my nomination was denied.
Right.
Though it was Honorable Maithripala Sirisena who was the leader of the party, the entire nominations were done by the former President Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Right.
And after working for 23 years, he and some members of the family decided to not give my nomination and make me a scapegoat, a sacrificial lamb, so to speak.
Right.
So that, you know, that's what happened to me.
Do you feel hard done by what happened to you at that time?
Well, it's, I'm not angry. I mean, you know, I have gone through a lot of pain, and my family has gone through a lot of pain because I've been remanded, taken out remanded for false allegations, false charges, and so on and so forth. But the unkindest cut of them all, like what Mark Anthony said, showing Caesar's body, was the fact that I was denied nominations for no apparent reason.
Right. So, Sajin Vass Gunawardena is back into active politics and he is with the SLFP, and you said that you're in the process of forming the largest alliance. But let's talk about your opposing factions. Let's talk about the Samagi Jana Balavega and the NPP in particular. During the Aragalaya and following what preceded or succeeded the Aragalaya, we saw, at least on social media, which can be at present considered a very, very major yardstick of the people's mood in Sri Lanka, the NPP gained a lot of ground and there was a massive wave of support for the NPP. People were advocating for a system change. They were saying that we need to move away from traditional political parties and give the NPP a chance, and the NPP also in a way embraced that sentiment of the people. So come election season and the SLFP is fielded against these two parties and also the SLPP as well, how will you navigate these tricky waters, especially considering the opponents are much stronger than what they used to be?
See, Jamal, my interpretation of the matter is totally different. For the simple reason, the Aragalaya was not a political movement initially. It was a movement for survival.
Right.
No food, no, you know all that. I don't have to waste time going into all that. So fundamentally, it was started by the people. For the people.
Okay.
Right? But halfway across we saw the JVP. I don't think this NPP is a correct notion to, it is the JVP. Right? I call them, I would like to differentiate that. Right? NPP is only a falsehood.
Right.
Just to pull wools over everybody's eyes.
Right.
So the JVP basically hijacked the Aragalaya halfway across.
Okay.
And the objectives of the JVP at that time, in my interpretation, was totally different. Because I remember Honorable Annakumara Disanayaka was saying at meetings that they have to look at a solution outside the constitution.
Right.
So the violence that emanated, the violence that was done, and the burning of the houses. I mean, I survived death by 99.9% near Bere.
Oh,
I happened to be stuck there in my vehicle. Then the house next to me, 2 doors next to me, Johnston Fernando's house was burned. Right? And I found out later on when the investigations were happening, it was done by well-organized groups of 10 people, 9 people. They have mapped out the whole place.
Right.
So these are not things done by the normal people who actually was affected by this. And the fact that they tried to burn the parliament clearly demonstrates the fact that these are all a fascist sort of regime that they tried to make. So having said that, the principles of the Aragale and the fact that the hardship that the people have to go through, right, those people are still suffering. Right? No solution has been given to those people.
Right.
But we must understand the fact, Jamal, that thanks to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, this economy went back minus 12.5%. Right? Today it has come to a positive nature, and by the next quarter, I believe there's going to be a growth.
Right.
So what's right, what has been done right, we must accept the fact. But I don't think SLPP can take the credit to that, because they are the offenders.
So is that you admitting that incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe is doing a good job?
No, see, it's like this. There's two sides to it.
Okay.
When you look at the economic comeback and the discipline that was required for that, yes, he has achieved that.
Right.
But at the same time, from minus 12.5 to a plus situation in 1.5 years is not an easy task. And the challenges that is there and the reforms that has to be done, these are all very hard things to do. Whether it is Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe or Maithripala Sirisena or whoever is there at the helm, the path that you have to take after you declare bankruptcy is one.
Right.
And if you don't have the discipline and the wherewithal and the exposure to understand this, nobody can get to the targets.
Right.
That's number one. But having said that, the largest issue that we have in this country today is two-pronged. One is the fact that due to the fact that 12.5%, there was a minus 12.5% contraction of the economy, more than 230,000 industries have closed up. Then the avenues, the opportunities that people have to make their livelihood is non-existent today. Then there is huge food insecurity.
Right.
Because of the ban on fertilizer and so on and so forth, production has dwindled. So as a result, the FAO also has given the program, the World Food Program, that people are starving. Now that is something that this government, whoever it is, has a primary responsibility to look at. But unfortunately that is not happening.
Right.
Right?
So another thing that a lot of people are attributing is, when you spoke about the Aragale, you said that it was a fight for survival for the people. And the Aragale was the culmination of economic mismanagement, not only of the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government, as a lot of people claim, but one would say is the culmination of economic mismanagement and also corruption from successive governments since we gained independence. And you were part of one of those governments, or multiple governments in the past. So do you feel responsible for what the people had to undergo and are currently suffering also?
See, I don't agree on the fact that when you say that, now some people say 75 years of history that led to this, that's not correct. When you look at expansion of economy, right, you have the ups and downs, right, global situations, all these come into play.
Right.
But essentially, our economy has grown from 1960s to the 20th century now, right? But having said that, the debacle of the economy, have we ever gone through what we went through in 2022, 2021?
Maybe because the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated it. It was
it's not.
a tragedy
Actually,
waiting to happen.
I will tell you in 1 minute my interpretation of the matter.
Right.
2019, when the government was handed over by Honorable Maithripala Sirisena and Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe to Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the president, there was almost $7 billion of Sri Lankan owned money.
Yes.
Nothing borrowed. Right? Then they wanted to hold the dollar at 220 or 200 or whatever, and they expended the entire reserve.
Yes.
And they did not go and borrow ISBs and all that to maintain your reserves. I'm telling you in a very simple form. Right, on the one side.
Right.
Then on the other side, they needed $680 million to bring the fertilizer. They didn't have that. So these are sheer mismanagement. Right. So who is to blame for that? You can't blame 25 years of history, 75 years of history.
But you can't also deny that there was no corruption.
No. So that's another subject. I'll come to that.
Okay.
Corruption in any country, in any process, there is an element of corruption.
Right.
I saw recently Singapore, one of the ministers, I can't remember what the portfolio is.
The former health minister.
He was also indicted for corruption. Right? Now, yes, there was corruption. Right? There was no action taken for that also. Right? That we have to accept that.
Certainly.
Right? So, now for example, somebody very close to the excellence of power told me recently that today rail tracks are being done, new rail tracks are being done. Now, this is explosive thing, I'm telling you. I don't know how far, whether it is 100% truth or not.
Okay, so you bear the responsibility
I bear
of
the
your
responsibility
statements,
of saying it, right? But this is something that has to be assessed and looked at.
Right.
That new rail tracks are done at $1.5 million per kilometer.
Right.
But in the past, it has been done at $10.5 million. Now, the ADB looked at the road network, and I think they did a comparison. And whereas I believe they basically made an assessment that there is about 150-160% excess costs in Sri Lanka when you compare with the norms elsewhere.
Right.
So, you see, what we need is, now when the Yahapalana government came, actually most of the cases that they put was for optical purposes.
Yes.
Now, I have been acquitted under the Mihin Lanka corruption case that they filed for me.
Right.
Magistrate court acquitted me, and they went and did an appeal in High Court. High Court was acquitted
you.
Right? Because there must be some sort of proof and some sort of charges filed.
Yes.
And there was another case saying that I have misused vehicles, but there is no charge sheet for the last 10 years.
Right.
Right? But corruption is something we know where it is. Right? So there has to be proper investigations and there has to be proper follow-up on this.
Right. So, but I think Sri Lanka has come long enough when it comes to economic recovery for those in the echelons of power to take a look at how corruption has run rampant in the country. Yes, we know the economy is not fully stable, but we are going at a steady pace. And now I believe personally, and I'm pretty sure most of our viewers will also agree, that it is time for us to revisit those, look at recovering assets that were lost, asset recovery, looking at the money that was stolen, looking at indicting the people who are responsible for these crimes, economic crimes that the UN itself has coined as a word and a term now. Don't you agree with me in that particular sentiment?
See, Jamal, I would agree with you in the process, but it's a very complicated process, no?
Yes, but it must be instituted nonetheless.
It must be instituted, but you have to stop it, you have to nip it in the bud at the first point itself, not wait until the last point. Right? You must have a very clear guideline, very transparent way of doing things.
Right.
Now, for example, there are 100 and odd state-owned enterprises that are going to be disposed of.
Yes, I want to talk to you about that as well.
Whether it is right or wrong, it's a different matter.
Right.
That's a matter of interpretation. Certain things are right, certain things are not right.
Right.
We can argue. People have different views. Now, what is the easiest way of getting rid of these? If you have to get rid of them, float them in the stock exchange. Sri Lankan Airlines, for example, float it in the stock exchange. If you don't want to float it here, go to Mumbai. Anywhere where you can, right? I mean, obviously debt restructuring has to take place, all that has to be done. So we have to have a very transparent way of doing things. Now, for example, I have been following in Parliament, now this, I won't say private company names, but this privatization of the fuel retail.
Yes.
Right, this company that was given recently, was a royalty charged? When you compare with IOC that was given long years ago, they have paid $75 million royalty. Right? And in Parliament, I saw the respective minister saying that there will be a royalty charge plus there will be a 4% on revenue, but nothing. Right? So this is where it has to start. See, Jamal, it's a very simple thing. Parliament majority is controlled by the same party, SLPP.
Right.
Nothing has changed. Right? So, I think the people are waiting for an election to come to show their decision on that.
Right.
Right? So unless this whole process is changed, unless the majority of the SLPP is changed from governance, we'll have to expect this.
Right.
It's a very simple thing.
Right. So has there been any sort of invitation or an interest from the United National Party, who is now also trying to restructure its affairs because its president, its leader is also the president of this country, for the United National Party and the SLFP to maybe join alliances? Not quite.
There has not been any official invitation as such. But we are in the process of forming an alliance with some good personalities who are in Parliament and who are outside Parliament also. And who are more amenable towards what we believe in, the centre path, as we say. I mean, we are not a 100% leftist oriented party that had, we've all have to modernize from there, right? So we have to accept the fact that we have to have a proper equilibrium in terms of governance.
Right.
So we are in the process of doing that, and I think hopefully within about the next couple of days we should be able to announce a new alliance.
A new alliance.
Yes.
Do you believe that alliance can be the winning ticket for the SLFP?
Well, I strongly believe, I mean, you know, whether we get a single majority or not is what is important. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party will be a deciding factor of actually who governs this country. It may be the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, it may be a coalition, but we become the factor of who actually enjoys the power in this country.
And your presidential candidate would be?
That is too premature.
Not
that is too premature because there is no, I mean, the presidential election is coming end of the year, maybe September, October.
But it won't be Maithripala Sirisena?
Why not?
But it has already been announced, has it not?
Pardon?
Has it not been announced
No,
that he
nothing
would
has
be
been
the
announced
presidential
because
candidate?
it's very simple. Because even Honorable Maithripala Sirisena, what he, even day before yesterday, what he said is, we don't know whether there is a general election that is coming. Right? It's too premature. When the time is right, it may be Maithripala Sirisena, it may be Sajin Vass Gunawardena, it may be Dushmantha Sennaik. Right? It may be somebody else in the party, it may be Nimal Siripala. I know he's of course with the government. Right? No, I'm just throwing out names.
Okay.
Right? It can be anybody.
So it's still up in the air?
It's still up in there.
So let me speak to Sajin Vass Gunawardena, the businessman, when it comes to reviving Sri Lanka's economy and increasing the revenue that Sri Lanka gains, because one problem we have is our balances when it comes to expenditure versus revenue has been in shambles for many years. So how does Sri Lanka's economy need to be restructured, to be modernized, to embrace new developments, to embrace new industries, and in the process develop our economy in a sustainable way? I want to speak to the businessman Sajin Vass Gunawardena on that.
See, from a very practical sense, you must understand what we lack. We lack entrepreneurship here. Right? So we have to create, you know, everybody says production, but what is this production? We have to create, we have to have commercial agriculture, we have to have industrialization. Right? Then we have to identify our niche service sectors. So we have to build about 25,000 new farmers. When I say farmers, I'm not saying the traditional farmers. We are looking at technology oriented, right, commercial agriculture. Right? We have to look at, now when you take the agriculture sector, the cold chain processes must be there, delivery processes must be there, value addition must be there. Industrialization, we have to be able to create industries. Right now, for example, if you see Thailand, former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra had one village, one product. Right? We have to create now the resources of the sea. Right? We have to create 25,000 new fishermen. Right? We have to create 25,000 entrepreneurs. We need the capital to do this. Then we need the vision to do this. See, what I told you earlier, what is lacking is the opportunity for the people to do that. Then we have another fundamental issue, Jama. Where does all this unrest start? It starts at the entrance to the university. Because all these, majority of these children, of these students, they come with a huge economic burden. They're a huge economic burden to the parents. The parents don't have money to sustain them. And that burden is what they emanate. And they become cannon fodder, cattle fodder, right, for the JVP as their acolytes, as their private army. So we have to start a system where we solve that problem first and then direct this energy, direct this strength that we have, the labor force that we have towards achieving production. Now, come 2027, to facilitate our debt, after the debt restructuring, when we start repayments, we have to have 14% of our GDP as revenue. We are at about 8 to 9%. Where are we going to do that? Right? If you don't concentrate on expansion of your economy, right, you cannot do this. So therefore, it is very, very important. Now the 5 precepts of the SLFP, Sangha Veda Guru Govi Kam Karu, that is what has to be revived. Right? Not in its traditional sense, but modernized, where they have an equal opportunity, where they can contribute to the economy and they can live with that. Then there is another one. With this crisis that we have with the foreign exchange, we have to look at as much as possible currency swaps with other countries. We must identify Now, for example, Indian currency and Sri Lankan currency are swappable.
Yes.
Fantastic. But unfortunately, I don't see many entrepreneurs, many importers, many manufacturers in Sri Lanka depending on it. India is our future, economic-wise. Right? So we must make use of that. China, yes. Right? So China, we have a swap, but we can't do anything.
Yes.
It's just kept there for the beauty of it. But we have to change this. Now, I have seen that the government has a couple of swaps in arrangement. So we have to have, we must liberalize in one extent, and then we must also know to increase our production and to make the people, give them economic empowerment. And that is the primary task that we in the SLFP will be doing. And we will very soon put out our economic program. It's not going to be theoretical. It's be a practical program that we're going to put up.
Right. So one thing I noticed, a common theme during your remarks and your opinions, was that you have a deep rage towards the JVP. You have not singled out either the SJB or the SLPP when it comes to when you speak of certain acts that were done concerning the Aragalaya, concerning university students. We know there are unions within universities of other parties as well, but why do you single out the JVP specifically?
Because they're the people who do it.
How do you say
We
so?
all know that. We all know that. That's not a secret. Black is black, white is black. White.
Right.
See, I'm 51 years old this year. I have seen what the JVP have done. To my own eyes, when my father was the chairman of the Ports Authority in 1989-90 period, to my own eyes, I have seen people being murdered. I have seen one day when I was going to Amilipite, where I was about 16 years old at that time, I saw a grandmother looking for the bodies of her son. So that is a past that we can't forget. Now, if that party, they came into the democratic process, fine, but have they changed? No, they are wolves in sheep's clothing.
Do you not believe that they have
No,
changed?
definitely not. Right? And, okay, let's say, if they are a party that can actually take power in this country, change this country, fine. If that is the will of the people, fine. But I'll tell you one thing. I know for a fact they'll never get power in this country to the extent that they think they can get it, and they themselves know it. And even I saw Lal Kanta saying recently, where he said that there should be a parade with topless women coming from Galle to Colombo. If that is their view of how tourism can be improved, and then they also brought in that prostitution should be made legal, and all these things. So, but what I am saying is, if you think that they are the solution, they are sadly mistaken. Because if they by any chance come to power, they will dismantle this country and they will dismantle society. Right? Because there are a bunch of people who are against society. Right? That is very, when you interpret that, when you see them, when you see what they talk about, I'm not talking physically. That's not what I'm saying. They may say the same thing to me. But their ideologies. Now, I saw Lal Kanta saying that once they get power, the first thing they will do is to use maximum power to dismantle and destroy the forces that comes against them, because that is what is expected by the people who voted them in. Now, how do you interpret that? Isn't that murder? Right? So, this is what the factuality is. And the people of this country is not that foolish. I mean, they know how to use the social media. They know how the propaganda works. Right? And they portray something different. But you wait and see when the election comes and when the campaign starts, people will understand. Surely they might be leading. That is true. I'll give them that. They might be leading when you compare with the other political parties. But there is still time. And we'll see how it takes place.
There is still time, and we will see how everything turns out. That is the message that my guest tonight, Sajin Vass Gunawardena, Assistant Secretary General of the SLPP, has to convey to you and I this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Sajin Vass Gunawardena, for joining me and sharing your very candid and open views regarding Sri Lanka's economy, how it can be revived, and the future political path of the SLFP, and coming on to the show after quite a long time. So thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Thank you very much, Jamal. Thanks a lot.
And that's the way it was on Face to Face tonight. Do take care and have yourselves a great night.